Greetings everyone, my name is Etterville, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Make a Good Mega Man Level Contest 2, or Magmal 2 for short. During the last part, I entered Wily Star II and completed the first two fortress stages, those being outer space as well as the water ducts. So in this part, I'll be completing the next two fortress stages. So currently, I'm in Wily Stage 2 Classic Castle, and this stage was developed by JupiHornet. This is a homage to many of the classic Wily Castles stages. It's overall traditional in terms of feel and design, and features plenty of enemies returning from the classic series. In fact, I think this stage doesn't feature any enemies that are unique to any of the entry stages. And out of the 7 Wily Star stages, I'd say that this is the second hardest one. And it caused a lot of trouble for me during my test playthroughs, as the main gimmicks of this stage are spikes, yoku blocks, yoku spikes, keys, and key doors. And if you're wondering where this stage's theme originates from, it comes from the ROM hack Rockman 4 Burst Chaser Cross Air Sliding, specifically Dustman's stage theme, and I will eventually LP it in the future. Now, in terms of how much I like this stage, well, it's my 5th favorite Wily Star II stage. Unfortunately, in comparison to all the other Wily Star II stages, it's not that unique. As I just said, it's a homage to all the classic Wily Castle stages, hence why it doesn't have a unique gimmick, outside of maybe the yoku spikes, but those were used before. All of the other Wily Star stages have something else unique going for them. And these teleporters take us to the next section of the stage. Keep in mind though that the beginning of every section is a checkpoint. Also, as you may have noticed when I paused the stage at the beginning of this part, the rush utilities, super arrow, and wheel cut are disabled. JupiHornet did so that we don't circumvent and trivialize many of the challenges. Thankfully, we still have access to stuff like the Flash Stopper. I just wish I had access to the skull barrier, especially for some future challenges. This is the second time we're going to be facing a Big Eye in order to collect a key. That's one suggestion for JupiHornet that I wish he implemented. That being that every one of these rooms has a different Big Eye equivalent, like a Power Muscler at the Chone, because we'll see this again at least 2 more times. I meant to do a slide jump over there, but I panicked and held down the A button for too long. Oh, poor Tama still suffers from a rather lack of durability. And this is where the stage encounters somewhat of a difficulty spike, and where I had a lot of problems during my test runs. Not this screen specifically, but one in the near future. Here's the third battle against the Big Eye. Interesting note over here. Unlike Mega Man Maker, fan fiends cannot push you off screen and forcefully initiate a screen transition. You need to manually walk off screen in order to initiate a screen transition, so that's nice. This screen. This created a lot of problems during my test runs. But remember, you always have access to Flash Stopper, so use it if you want to make your experience a bit easier. After all, these are the Fortress levels. And that's it, we're at the end of the stage. That was easily the most difficult room and that caused the most amount of heartache. So down we go into the Black Void, where we face the boss that doesn't have a name. I actually programmed this boss. JupiHornet designed the boss's moveset, abilities, and whatnot, and I programmed it. However, it's one of the more boring Fortress bosses, I'd say. And if you're wondering why the boss's sprite looks so strange, it's actually a placeholder sprite. Jupi and I meant to get a sprite artist to formally recreate the boss with a better design, but unfortunately we ran out of time. One of my main gripes about this boss fight is how it follows a rather strict pattern. Even though its weakness is the grab buster, it's so easy to defeat and has such a large hitbox that you can easily just tear through it by using the Mega Buster and charge shots. If I were to design the boss, it would have had an extra pinch mode, as well as get faster at lower health, and had more attacks, and have a little bit more RNG involved. but I guess it's better than nothing. And the reception it's received has been pretty positive. So now we're moving on to Wily Lever Oriental Enchanted, done by Enjl. We're basically in the equivalent of the castles or space station's air ventilation ducts. So we start off with the Brightman gimmicks, with the Wadons and those firework enemies. And here's the main gimmick of the stage, these levers, or rather the Gravity Man switches. As you may recall, they can materialize these platforms out of nothing. However, here you can also just flip the switch back, which wasn't possible back in Gutsman's Asteroid, so that'll be important in later parts of the level. As demonstrated right over here, because you're forced to do a jump again. And overall, I'd say that this is my second favorite Wily Star II stage of them all. The favorite one will come across in two parts. In some ways, I'd say that the usage of the Gravity Man switches is more creative in comparison to Gutsman's Asteroid, especially because it spawns in unique enemies too. Also, if you're wondering why the stage has such a odd name, this is a reference to the first level of the Super Mario Bros. X episode Mixed World 2, which was titled Dynasty Oriental Enchanted, and both the level and episode became famous, or rather infamous, due to their lack of quality. Hence, it became a running joke that Enjl utilized here. However, unlike that level, this level is actually good. And I gotta say, the musical track playing in the background, titled Program from Kirby Planet Robobot, specifically an 8-bit remix, it's very foreboding. In fact, this wouldn't feel out of place as being a final Wily Fortress stage theme before you fight the final Wily Capsule or Wily Machine. Also, in this stage, we actually have access to the Rush Coil and Wheel Cutter, but we don't have access to the Rush Gen and Super Arrow. Of course, the Wheel Cutter allows you to skip past a lot of challenges in the stage, so Enjl probably should have locked it as well. Apparently, my foot was a little bit too much to the left there. As a demonstration of using Rush Coil to circumvent some of the challenges. Or the wire adapter, that works too. and yet it still got the last blow on me. Here we gotta be a bit careful so we jump below the switch. And here make sure not to jump again. And here make sure not to jump at all. And now we have one of these bigger rooms. In fact, if you want to speedrun this room, just ignore going to that teleport over there and use the wheel cutter to scale the walls. Apparently, Rush Coil cannot spawn in on these top solids. And this is how you circumvent the left room, but I'll show it the normal way, as it's one of the highlights of the level. First activate this switch, then this switch, then this switch, then this switch, then this switch, and then activate the ladder on the right. Also, you may have noticed that I can stand on top of the shields of those enemies. That'll become important in a later stage, or rather a mini stage. And that was taken from one of the Game Boy titles, I think. Nonetheless, that's the end of the stage. Now we fall down over here and activate the switch to fight the boss. But before that, let's consume an E-Tank and let's do it. So the boss of I-3 is the Ripplings, and it has one critical weakness. Of course, it's also weak against the Grab Buster, but it doesn't have any invulnerability frames. Or maybe it does, but they're rather short. With the destruction of the first Rippling, now we fight two Ripplings at once. And this is where the fight gets a bit more hectic, where you need to pay attention. Due to the boss's lack of invulnerability frames, they are easily destroyed by any special weapons that repeatedly hit the enemy, or of course if you button mash fast enough, or if you have auto fire enabled. There we have it. That was the end of the 3 Ripplings. Too bad we don't fight 3 at once. This was a rather unique encounter and I quite enjoyed it. Overall, I'd say that I enjoyed both the Wily Fortress stages that I went through in this part. So in the next part, I'll be covering Wily 4, Inner Sanctum. Well then, thanks for watching and have a nice day. Toodles!